Welcome back to the Lunch Break Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Reggie. Do me a favor, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. Everything having to do with Dive Team Media Network, as we have a bunch of shows. We have the Splashcast. We have our political correspondent, LOA Amaker. We have the Lunch Break Podcast, and we have some more shows in the works. You are now tuned in to episode 3 of the Falcons training camp miniseries entitled Camp Confidential. It is game week, ladies and gentlemen. It is game week. We are here. We have made it to the promised land. It is preseason. NFL football season is back. We are here. We had the Hall of Fame game. The Hall of Fame inductees went in. Congrats to Sterling Sharp? Shannon and Sterling. Yeah, Sterling Sharp. Congrats to all of everybody else that went in as well. The Atlanta Falcons are on the clock. Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. I am your co-host, Reggie, once again. Make sure you can like, follow, and subscribe. Hit all the buttons for me. Leave your information in the chat. Go to Instagram. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Dive Team Media Network. The Lunch Break Podcast, anywhere you can get your podcast. Got an action-packed show for you today. A lot to talk about. We're going to talk about training camp. Our training camp update. The first week and a half is over with. I want to say training camp day 7 or 8 was today. Shout out to, before we get started, I do want to shout out some of our partners. Shout out to Falcons Formula over on Instagram. He is where we get all of our graphics and most of our information. He does a great job of summing up all of the information from all of the Falcons pundits that go all around to training camp and give their opinions and observations on what they see every day. Falcons Formula, you can find them on Instagram, TikTok, or wherever you get your social media for all of the latest information when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. All right, preseason game 1, Detroit, Friday, August 8th. We'll get to it. Excuse me. We're going to talk about some of the position battles that we have going on. We're going to talk about some of the players on the bubble. You know, we're going to go position by position and what we're looking for and who we're looking for to see to make an impact in that game. But before we get to the preseason game, we are going to talk about training camp, man. First week is going on. We got our QB update, how Michael Penix is looking. Going to look at some of the injuries, man. Injury bug hasn't been too strong yet. Go ahead and knock on wood, shout it. Look at some of the roster moves, some of the signings that we've had, and then we'll look at some special teams, offense, and defense individually. But before we get there, I know what you all want to talk about. So let's go ahead and get it over with. Do y'all really think Jerry Jones is going to let Micah Parsons walk out of the door? If you look at the track record of Jerry Jones with Dak Prescott, with CeeDee Lamb, there's no way he's going to allow for Micah Parsons to walk out of the door. Now, Jerry, pulling some sneaky, underhanded negotiation tactics don't really bode well for you. Negotiating a contract with a player without their agent there just doesn't seem ethical to me. I understand why Micah Parsons' agent decided, no, this is not what you're going to sign, 1. And 2, if you think you're going to sign that, what we're going to do is go back and look over it with a fine-tooth comb and start all the way over, which is what Jerry Jones doesn't want to do. But at the end of the day, Micah Parsons is probably the second or third best edge defender in the league. At least that's how he's viewed, right? There's Myles Garrett, there's TJ Watt, and there's Micah Parsons Jr. The difference between those three, Micah Parsons Jr. There's Micah Parsons. The difference between those three is Micah Parsons is 25, 26 years old. He'll be 26 during the season. He's just now entering his prime, and he's probably the third best edge rusher in the league. So I can't imagine that you don't pay Micah Parsons top 3 defensive edge rusher in the league. And I understand why he's saying he wants to be one of the top 2 highest paid edge rushers. Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett. Cool. But again, Micah is 26. You have to pay for what you expect. He's already outplayed his rookie contract. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Shout out to Bomani Jones and Dominique Foxworth, who pointed this out that I didn't really realize. I did realize, but I guess making it plain is what it needs to like turn on the light bulb. Micah Parsons Jr. is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. I don't know how Jerry Jones is allowed. Well, not allowed. I know you could keep the team anyway, but I don't know how you don't run him off if he lets Micah Parsons walk out of the door. But if he does, if Micah Parsons does actually leave, the Falcons have been mentioned as one of the teams to look out for to get Micah Parsons. We have assets. We have a little bit of money. And when I say a little bit of money, I mean a little bit of money. But we've made some interesting moves, or an interesting move, to free up about $11 million in cap space, and that was extending Caleb McGarry. So by extending Caleb McGarry on 2 years, $30 million, and spreading some of that money out, we had now created $10.6 million of extra cap space, which gives us $15 million in cap space, according to Over the Cap. What does that mean? Yeah, we know Micah Parsons wants 40, right? But if you do trade for him, if you're at Raheem and Terry Fontenot, you do have a plus 15. So now you really ought to need to do is create $25 million in cap space, which, because our team is so young, I don't know who that person would be other than probably Kyle Pitts. I'd assume maybe Ebiketie would go. They're talking about Braylon Trice, and then maybe Algier, plus a couple picks. 1 pick and a pick swap, if I'm not mistaken. That's a lot to give up for Micah Parsons, knowing that you have to sign him to a 4-year, $160 million contract. We haven't done well with being able to negotiate or handle the salary cap. The previous regime kept kicking the can down the road with Julio and Matt Ryan, which is you kind of got to do because Julio arguably the best receiver in the league while he was playing, and then Matt Ryan was a top 10, top 5 quarterback. So you had to pay them, but it took us a couple years to get out of that cap hell. So we don't want to necessarily go back in unless it's a sure thing. But would I go back in for Micah Parsons? Absolutely. Y'all let me know in the comments, and let me know while we're talking, what would you give up for Micah Parsons Jr., or would you let him pass? Because we have a deep defense all of the sudden, which we'll get to. But we have a deep defense, y'all. And at this point, I really want to see what the young guys do. Not gonna lie to you. I want to see that there's been so much hype about JPJ, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, who is basically in the mold of Micah Parsons. And then you have all of the other role players that are already here, plus guys that are coming off the injured reserve. So I don't know if I necessarily would give up that much for Micah Parsons and pay him that much. Now, Micah, final thought, y'all, promise. Now, Micah, if you come over here for 35, 38, 37, somewhere in there, that could work. or we get rid of somehow Kirk Cousins has to come into this equation. Because if you get rid of Kirk Cousins, then all of a sudden you don't have to really get rid of anybody else. The thing is, if you try to get rid of Kirk Cousins and on the third team, you now have Michael Penix Jr. and nobody else at quarterback. Emory Jones and Easton Stick, which we'll talk about. So while Kirk Cousins probably is the answer money-wise, you got to figure out where you could make that work. We'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not going to get my hopes up for Micah Parsons. But I will say that extension of Caleb McGarry and freeing up $10 million to give us 15 tells me that there is something in the works. I don't know what it is. I don't know who it is, but we're going to get somebody. I just don't know who it is yet. We will keep up with it. All right. So we're done. We've covered Micah Parsons. Everybody has been talking about Micah Parsons all summer. Let's get back to who we have on the team. So let's go over training camp. Training camp update. Again, shout out to Falcons Formula for all of this news, compiling all of these news and notes from all of our Falcons insiders. Offense. Let's start out with offense. It seems like every year we always hear Bijan Robinson is going to be a wide receiver. Bijan Robinson this, Bijan Robinson that. They're going to play Algier and Bijan Robinson together. We really didn't see it unless they put Algier at fullback last year. I hope that this year we can play with two running backs on the field and motion Bijan and use him everywhere as a wild card. Zach Taylor. So what we're going to do is let's start out with the offense and training camp update. Start out with Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor not only has been implementing the more two-back sets where Bijan is in the slot or he motions all the way out to the X, and then they run a screen play for Algier, or they fake the bubble screen to Bijan and run a screen to Algier or a draw. Having both of them on the field is fantastic. If you can truly stick to that, this is Zach. Now, again, if you go back to episode 1 of Training Camp Confidential of this miniseries, I told you guys to look out for Zach Taylor to make a big jump when it comes to managing the offense and calling the plays. Remember, Zach Taylor came from the Rams. He's with Sean McVay. Sean McVay is like Shanahan. He's going to call the plays. He's going to help design. He's going to design the plays, and you're going to help. But he is the man when it comes to offense. It's not the offensive coordinator. He is the offensive coordinator, even if you have the title. So last year, Zach Taylor was calling plays for the first time, I think, in his professional coaching career. This year, he gets a full off season with Penix. He gets a full off season with all of the players that are healthy. I don't think we have anybody hurt other than Mooney, and we'll get there as well. But Zach Taylor now has almost a full arsenal of weapons to design plays around and understanding how to design plays and situational football. Normally, when players have the sophomore slide, when it comes to coming into the league and doing something in the second year, you know, you kind of hit that sophomore wall. You hit the rookie wall, and then you have the sophomore slump. I expect it's kind of opposite with coaches, right? I expect Zach Taylor, with his experience and knowledge and understanding of his own offense, to be able to call this offense and put us in better plays. Not better plays, but put us in better plays, but better situations and understand situational football. I think he really got in a groove at the end of the year, and I think he really, really likes Michael Penix. Why do I think he likes Michael Penix? Zach Taylor is studying the Washington playbook, the University of Washington playbook when he was in college playing with Kalen DeBoer. Now, I'm not going to nerd you out about college football because Kalen DeBoer is, I believe, at Alabama right now. He has Ryan Williams, which is another crazy wide receiver. But if you look at Kalen DeBoer's offense, Washington pushed the ball down the field. Penix likes to throw the ball down the field. He likes timing. He enjoys he loves to, I'm not going to say float or lob the ball. He likes to throw it on a rope. He likes to push it in there. So, pause if necessary. So, knowing that Zach Taylor is studying Washington's playbook and looking for formations and using ways, and again, Washington ran double running backs as well, and looking for ways to throw Bijan in the slot and play Algier, man, our offense could be absolutely crazy. Update. Quarterbacks. Let's get to the quarterbacks. Penix named the starter before training camp started. Running with the first team. Looked absolutely fantastic, except for one day where he was played. Receivers dropped the ball, but also he just had a rough day. I think through an interception. He had a couple overthrows. He missed Bijan on a wheel route. I think that was like day 4. So, other than that, he has looked sharp. I think everybody, including I've been watching ESPN, NFL, and NFL Network, they are talking about how pretty his passes are. No ducks, no wobbles, nothing. What I do like most is that he is trying to involve Kyle Pitts. We'll talk about the tight ends and wide receivers later, but the fact that they're getting Kyle Pitts involved intentionally and they're being intentional about it is exciting. I have long said, I think I did a whole series with the Splashcast on why we should keep Kyle Pitts versus why we should trade Kyle Pitts. And I am of the belief that I would love to keep Kyle Pitts and turn him into Travis Kelce. I think he has everything that he needs to be other than a blocker to be Travis Kelce. And I think if he could I think blocking will come with old man strength. I think he's 24. Kyle Pitts is like 24. I don't think he can even rent a car. But he's like 24, 25. So, 27 to 30, if we can maximize his talent, that strength will come to where he'll be able to block. But if he can be Michael Penix Jr.'s safety blanket the way that Kelce is Patrick Mahomes' safety blanket, you can't double anybody at that point. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited that Penix is being intentional. I also like that I've read the news that Penix and Kirk will sit in their meetings and have discussions back and forth. And the coaches will just kind of let them kind of hash it out before they and then answer any questions. And then they all reconvene and come back together and discuss or have the discussions about what they talked about. I like that. That's great to hear that Kirk Cousins is living up to his word and saying, hey, man, it didn't work out. I'm not going anywhere as of now. So I am 100% locked in with the Falcons and being the best Falcon I can be. And that is one of the advantages of Kirk Cousins. I'm not saying it's a $40 million advantage to keep him as the most expensive backup quarterback in the history of football. But if you had to overpay a backup and you needed somebody to take a demotion, Kirk Cousins is probably that guy. And again, Kirk Cousins isn't chopped liver now. He is the favorite. He is the second team quarterback. His favorite target is David Sills, undrafted rookie free agent who is now a veteran wide receiver. But the thing that got everybody excited about Kirk Cousins is that he had a rushing touchdown in training camp. He went back in the red zone. Nobody was open. We'll talk about the defense. They've been playing out of their mind, but nobody was open. And he scrambled left and outran everybody to the pylon. And that apparently got everybody hype. The crowd, Raheem Morris jumped and gave him a chest bump. He jumped and gave Raheem a chest bump. Tells you about the Achilles, right? I told you guys before that Kirk's Achilles, ACLs, I know that those major injuries in modern medicine can get you back on the field a lot faster. But I still think that ACLs are year-long injuries. I think that Achilles are year to year and a half injuries before you're fully back and confident in the ligament's abilities. So the fact that Kirk Cousins is bootlegging left and rolling right and all of those things is a very positive sign. Does it mean that we're going to trade him? No. As a matter of fact, I think Raheem already came out and said they are not playing against the Lions, Kirk or Penix. So we have all the intentions of keeping Kirk. Does he have intentions of staying? I don't know. Time will tell. You never know. Indianapolis could come calling. There's a couple other teams that need a quarterback or may need a quarterback. Minnesota may come calling again. So when it comes to Kirk Cousins, it's still up in the air. But right now, he is looking sharp as ever in training camp. The third quarterback is up for grabs. Easton Stick. There is Emory Jones. I think Easton is leading right now. I think Emory Jones is just now getting some reps. I think Easton pretty much had the third QB under his thumb, the third QB position under his thumb. I don't know if Emory was hurt or not. I didn't see him on a lot of the injury reports, but I know that he will be battling. He did get some 11-on-11 action in the last couple of days of camp. So I'm assuming that he and Easton Stick will be battling it out all versus Detroit. I think Easton's got it. Being the backup quarterback really isn't always about ability. It's about being able to help the starting quarterback. Easton is a veteran. Easton has been the backup quarterback before. He knows exactly what to do. Wouldn't be surprised. But hey, Emory, Georgia boy, state, not school. He went to Florida. Best of luck. You should get a spot on the practice squad for sure. For sure. Let's move on to running backs. Everything's settled with running backs first two. Bijan, Algier. We already talked about it. They plan on playing both of them on the field together, allegedly. They said it last year. They said it the year before, and it didn't happen. But again, we'll find out. Bijan looking like a superhuman. Out there looking like a superhuman. He juked out the cameraman on multiple occasions. All I've seen about Bijan is how smooth he looks, how much faster and quicker he looks than last year, and how much faster and quicker he looks compared to everybody else on the field. They're moving him all around. I think he opened up a lot of eyes as a receiver last year. This year could get crazy. Algier is, I think, in a contract year. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a conversation at the end of last year on exit interviews and during offseason with Zach Taylor and Raheem, where Algier and his representation made it known that, hey, guys, I was a 1,000-yard rusher as a rookie. There's no reason I shouldn't get the ball, and I need to get paid. Now, if you're going to trade him to make him a starter, because Algier is a starting running back in this league. But I would love to keep him because it keeps the tie by having the dual running backs and then be able to sub and play. It keeps them fresh. This is a 17-game season, and if we're trying to win the Super Bowl, that's another 3 to 4 games. That's 20 games. 20 NFL games, y'all, against massive human beings. We've seen, look at Jordan Davis. The Eagles just won they just got everybody that's bigger than and faster than everybody else. So we're going to have to be able to manage our attrition throughout the season. So we got to have Algier here. They've all talked about how great a shape he's in. He's worked on his pass catching so he could be more involved in the screen game. I expect for I expect for 1,800 yards from Bijan, 1,800 to 2,000 yards total from Bijan, and 1,000 yards from Algier. I think we could have one of the most prolific offenses in history if we hit our marks. Prisoner of the moment, cool. That's fine. But what is intriguing is the running back 3 competition. You got Jashawn Corbin, who I believe came from the UFL. He's battling it out with Carlos Washington. Carlos Washington seems to have a firm hold on running back 3. But you never know, and you're still fighting for a spot on the practice squad. But that running back 3 or the third running back on the depth chart, you're going to have to be able to do a little bit of everything. If Bijan is lightning and Algier is thunder, you got to be able to pass block and be lightning and thunder. You have to be almost a utility man that can do everything that those running backs can do. Maybe not as well, but you got to have some type of experience in doing it. Carlos is good between the tackles as well as he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Case in point. So I look forward to seeing that competition play out. Running backs again. Quarterback settled, running back settled. Our offense is pretty settled. So we're going to kind of not rush through the offense, but again, not much to talk about here other than to talk about scheme and schematics. Oh, scheme and schematics. To talk about offensive scheme. So we can move on to the wide receivers. Now, the wide receivers is a bit more intriguing. Wide receivers tight end. Kyle Pitts is clearly tight end number 1, unless something changes through a trade or God forbid, injury. But they are being extremely cautious with Kyle Pitts. That's the first thing I'll say about Kyle Pitts. They are being extremely cautious with everybody. They're cautious with everybody across the board, but they have put bubble wrap around Kyle Pitts. But he is clearly number 1. He and Penix, again, the word is intentional. They are featuring him over the middle a lot. Again, Charlie Warner, when you are a backup, and you've already solidified yourself as the backup, the less they say about you, the better. Charlie Warner knows his role. Tight end number 2, blocking tight end, and I can catch the ball and run when needed. But I know my role. Block for everybody else. So I think he's penciled in as number 2. But number 3, though, the number 3 tight end is up for grabs. We signed the Splashcast, shameless plug. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to Splashcast, another Dive Team Media podcast that I co-host with Christopher Norwood. They signed former Florida Gators quarterback turned tight end Felipe Franks, the legend, best quarterback at Florida ever. That's a troll, by the way. And he's battling Tegan Quintoriano to be tight end number 3. And apparently Tegan is winning. I'm going to call him TQ. That better? Tegan is winning over Felipe Franks. Very surprised. Another person that I'm surprised that I haven't heard from that I profiled in the undrafted free agents reel or portion of the miniseries is Joshua Simon from South Carolina. He is a more he reminds me of like Jonnu Smith, kind of. He's like a bigger, more physical Jonnu Smith. He's almost like if you combine Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts, right? He's bigger and physical than Jonnu Smith. He's bigger than Jonnu Smith, more physical than Kyle Pitts. Has just as much athleticism, but he is not as fast. But I expected him to at least make some noise in training camp. I haven't heard anything from him. I've been following training camp every day. I have not heard anything about Josh Simon, so I'm looking forward to him making some noise. But again, tight end, first 2 seem to be set. This Tegan or TQ versus Felipe Franks, y'all keep your eye on it. Keep your eye on it. Let's talk about these receivers, y'all. Deep receiver room. Deep receiver room. Number one, of course, is Drake London. He has described himself as he wants to be a killer. He is trying to beat the man into submission, the defensive player, the cornerback or safety or whoever you decide to put on him. They're moving him around. Zach Taylor has talked about embracing motion and having everybody move around more in the spread offense to see what the defense is running. He is talking about being an alpha out there, alpha male, running over DBs. He's not scared to block. I mean, they rather him block on the edge than Kyle Pitts. But he is also making a lot of contested catches. It's contract year for him too. I know it's not because they picked up the option, but still, you wanna go ahead and extend Drake London before it gets to next year. You don't want a Micah Parsons type issue, and he's one of the guys at receiver with the way that this league has moved towards offense. He will be highly coveted. So you got to write a check for Drake London. You got to keep him because of his talent, his work ethic, and the fact that he's plugged in with Michael Penix. He's the number one receiver. You can't let your number one receiver go. He's having an impressive training camp. He did have one bad day, but apparently, I don't know if the drops was going through like a sickness, but everybody dropped the ball on day 2 or 3 of training camp. So Drake London does look great outside of that one day. Excited for it. Darnell Mooney, on the other hand, got injured on the first day of practice, y'all. The first day. Went up for a pass, came down, injured his shoulder. Really vague. The Falcons are being really vague when it comes to Darnell Mooney. He is going to be out for all of preseason, and they are not committed to him playing in week 1 against Tampa Bay. Crazy. He was the one that was most vocal about being excited to go to training camp with Michael Penix Jr. because he has to get used to Michael Penix Jr. throwing the football's rotation coming out of a left-handed quarterback versus a right-handed quarterback. So I was really hurt that he got hurt, or I was really upset that he got hurt. But hopefully the silver lining is that a lot of our other receivers, younger receivers, will get a chance to play. Again, this is a very deep receiver room. First, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod has been making plays all through preseason. Got to hold on to the ball, though, Ray. I've read a couple times you fumbled. They've knocked the ball out. Can't have that happen. But he's made plays. Very shifty slot receiver, very difficult to guard. And then, of course, Kadero Hodge, who is going nowhere. He is the 4th wide receiver. So now that you have the 4th wide receiver, the 4 wide receivers there, you really only have 2 spots. You're assuming that you're going to run 6, and a couple of them will play special teams, or maybe 7, and you slide one over as a returner. But we have more receivers than slots, and all of them are having a good camp. Nick Nash has been running with the second team for a lot. He and Kirk Cousins are developing a lot of rapport, but Kirk Cousins and David Sills have clicked. When you click with the backup, that gives you a leg up against everybody else. David Sills has been really impressive at camp. Chris Blair, a lot of names you guys might not keep up with, but take this video, take some of the data over from Falcons Formula, and go and see about Chris Blair. He's been impressive. Nick Nash, David Sills, Chris Blair are all fighting for the last spot because I said it was 2, but it's really 1 because we did sign DJ Chark, which was a confusing signing. But we signed DJ Chark. So we have DJ Chark, Nick Nash, David Sills, Chris Blair, And you still have Casey Washington that we drafted in the 5th round last year. That's 4 receivers for 2 spots. Somebody's not gonna make it. It's looking like practice squad for Nick Nash and Casey Washington, which is scary. Because if they go to practice squad, somebody's gonna sign them immediately. At least they'll sign Nick Nash. I know they will. But, that's what happens when you have a deep receiver room. And at this point, we just want to put our best 11 on the field at all times. So it would suck for Nick Nash to go, but at the end of the day, that's the nature of the business, right? So our wide receivers look good. Our tight ends are settled. Our quarterbacks are settled. We don't really have any open-ended positions. We have our top 2 at every position, at every skill position settled. There is no controversy. So hopefully Darnell Mooney gets better. I'm excited for it. When he does get better, I think we could have a top 5 offense in the league. I said top 10 defense and a top 5 offense. That equals normally playoffs in division. But we'll see. We shall see. All right. Talked about the quarterbacks. Excuse me. We've talked about the quarterbacks. We talked about the running backs. We talked about the wide receivers and tight ends. We got to get to the big uglies. You got to talk about the O-line. Very, very experienced O-line. We did lose Dahlman in free agency to Chicago Bears, our center. I mean, they paid him what we couldn't. At the end of the day, they paid him what we couldn't. And because he got hurt last year and Ryan Nuzul, if I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry. Ryan Nuzul came in and played pretty well. That gave us a little bit of flexibility and gave us something to ponder about, should we pay Dahlman or pay somebody else? So we let Dahlman go. So now Nuzul is in, calling the plays, calling the protections. This is his first offseason as a full-time starter. The beginning was a mixed bag, good and bad. That's what you expect in the first 2 days of camp. He's now settled in. He and James Pierce have been going at it. The whole offensive line and James Pierce have been going at it. Bergeron is the edge that we needed on offense in our offensive line. I love Chris Lindstrom, probably top 2 guard in the league. Jake Matthews, Mr. Consistency. But Bergeron has come to the defense of everybody, all the offensive linemen, every time there's a scuffle. Just so happens it's James Pierce, but whoever it is. And then at the end of the day, he's like, man, our team is good. Those defensive guys are going to make an impact, and they're going to be stars. Because he knows he's got to get them tough. That's how he was at Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken. Bergeron reminds me of, was it Harvey Dahl? Y'all remember Harvey Dahl in like 2012, like 10, 12 years ago? He was the guy who, would take the helmet and throw it across the field. If they got, and he'd get to fighting, and he would defend the quarterbacks and everything. We need that type of edge. We need that type of fear. We need that type of camaraderie for our O-line, because the skill positions can only go as far as the O-line takes them. Storm Norton, a little bit of injury. Storm Norton's been hurt. He's our backup O-lineman. I think he's our backup tackle and guard. He's like a swing tackle type guy. So I hate that he's hurt, but it does open it up for Jack Nelson. Jack Nelson is the only offensive player we drafted this year. We all drafted a right tackle or a tackle from Wisconsin. And because Storm Norton is hurt, he's been working in a backup with the twos at backup right and backup left tackle. So that will be an interesting battle to watch between Storm Norton and Jack Nelson, especially if Jack Nelson plays well. But of course, the big news is that we signed Caleb McGarry to 2 years, $30 million extension. My thoughts are, and this is a callback to episode 2 one or two, where we talked about the offense, and Caleb McGarry. I'm nervous about him being Michael Penix's blindside protector. I don't think he's ever been a blindside protector. He's always been a right tackle with a right-handed quarterback. Somebody fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. So now you do lock him up. And again, that the extension for me is more about another move versus locking him up, because again, that created $11 million in cap space. It's also a very, very tradable contract. So at the end of the day, I don't know if this gives any more stability or any more assurance that he'll be on the team next year than he already had before. So, but again, if he plays really, really well, he'll be right back at the table next year to do some discussions. This is more of a prove it deal. Really. It's more of a prove it deal. So it is what it is. But what I am happy about is we are turning into, our O-line is getting the reputation of being a mauling O-line. Y'all got to get y'all pass protection better. That's what I'm going to look for in the preseason. I got to see your pass protection. Our run game has always been top 5. Shout out to you, Arthur Smith. You got us where we needed to be on that. We're good. But our pass protection has to be stellar because we got to keep Penix healthy, right? So again, training camp wrap up for offense, QBs, running backs, wide receivers, O-line, all pretty much settled. But the outliers of the roster are going to be very interesting. The outlier battles for the roster spots will be very interesting. All right. Now I know y'all really want to talk about defense. We have put an emphasis on defense. We traded our first round pick next year to go back and get a second defensive player after we drafted a defensive player at 15, if I'm not mistaken. So we got our new defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, who is a new old face, very familiar to the Falcons. He was here under Dan Quinn. He started out as a linebackers coach. He left UCLA, came to the Falcons, went from the Falcons to the Jets, went from Jets to linebackers coach to defensive coordinator under Robert Saleh. So, and then he was interim head coach, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got a lot of experience that he got all at one time. Like that was everything I named was in like a 5 to 7 year period. Right. It's not like he put in 30 years because he's relatively young compared to some other coaches. So he wants to bring an attacking defense. That's something that he loves, is to blitz, and he loves to make you uncomfortable and be multiple. He is a 3-4 base defensive coach, but he also wants to run the 4-3, which is conducive to everybody on our roster to be able to do both. So I'm excited about the defense. I'm excited to see how we adapt to his scheme and how his scheme adapts to us being the defense, our defense. Let's talk about where y'all want to start. Y'all want to start with linebackers, D-line, edge, or you want to go to secondary? I know where y'all want to go. We all want to talk about the D-line and the edge rushers. So let's do it. For the 3-4, Onyemata and Rook have been getting a lot of the first team reps on the inside. So the 3-4, I think you got a nose tackle or a one technique. And then you have the right side end or the weak side defensive end and the strong side defensive end. Rook and Onyemata have been getting a lot of work at the nose tackle, D tackle position. The nose tackle in the 3-4 and then the D tackle position in the 4-3. A lot of people are impressed with Rook. This new defense of attacking versus sitting down and reading is always, any defense that runs where it's attack versus read normally is going to be better than the read versus the attack defenses, because offenses are so precise that you don't really have time to read. You have to trust your keys, trust your film study, and get to the point where you're supposed to be on the field and keep your head on a swivel in today's offense. So if it were me, I would try to find ways to take all of our defensive linemen and make them attackers because they're so young. Rook is in his second year and he's one of the veterans, other than like Anyamata and Morgan Fox. And at the end of the day, all the young players are going to have to play. So Rook has been impressive. Ulbrich says the sky's the limit for him. His first step is out of this world, and he looks like a big Grady Jarrett. So a bigger version of Grady Jarrett, I should say. So there's a lot of hype around Rook. I'm a shameless plug the whole time. Call back to the defensive episode 2 of the series, Camp Confidential. I talked about Anyamata, or who's going to step up and be the run defender, and it looks like that's going to be Anyamata. We have a lot of other players that are coming back. I believe Taquan Graham is back. I'm excited to see about Brandon Dorless to be able to get at least some reps at D tackle or D end, because he's one of those guys that's multiple as well. Rook is multiple. Dorless is multiple. And I think the biggest wild card, and probably the person that could take our defense over the top from a D-line perspective, is Zach Harrison. Because he's 6'5", because he has freakishly long arms, because he's quick. He can play inside at the 0 and the 2 or the 1 and the 3, and he can play on the outside as the 5 technique, right? So Zach Harrison is a hidden gem for me. If he can put it all together, I don't know how often he would come off the field because he's so versatile. And I think him being versatile allows you to play and pair him with other players as well. And then there's also Taquan Graham, who's coming back, who had started to kind of carve out a spot on this roster as a starter or a second player, a second string player, before he injured himself on, I think, a fumble recovery against the Chargers. I think he tore something, ACL or Achilles or something. But he is back and he's making some noise as well. In camp, everything I hear about our D-line is they are almost unblockable. And when I say unblockable, I don't mean like Philadelphia unblockable where they won the Super Bowl, but I do mean that they are attacking and it's very difficult to get in front of them to cut off their rush lanes, which is what I like. Edge, looking explosive, y'all. Looking explosive. At first in training camp, I believe Ebiketie and Floyd are running with the first team. But now the surprise of camp is Khalid Kareem, who has been in and out of the league. He's a veteran. I think he's still under 30. I think he's like 28. He has been a bright spot in camp. He's benefiting from just being told to pin your ears back and get to the quarterback. And he's doing that at a consistent rate, getting to Kirk and Penix a lot. So I expect for him to continue to make a name for himself with the edge rushers. I don't know if he'll have enough space, though, because you still have Ebiketie. Leonard Floyd is already penciled in as the starter on one side. Then on the other side, you have Ebiketie, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Khalid Kareem, and Braylon Trice. Y'all forgot about Braylon Trice, didn't you? Braylon Trice, first action since the knee injury. He's coming back. So at this point, again, you only have 4 linebacker spots. 2 edge, 2 inside linebackers. I just named 7 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I just named 7 people. If you're going to have 7 people for 2 spots, ain't enough rotation in the world to be able to play all of them, right? So you'll have to make moves. So I'm interested to see what moves will be made and who translates to the field from training camp. So our edge rushers are potentially, our linebacking core, inside and outside, are potentially our strength. I love that James Pierce Jr. is so passionate and 100 miles an hour, and he's not really stopping or not being that way. Everything that I've read about all the scuffles that are going on is that he's just going 100 miles an hour or 100% on each rep. And some of the veterans are like, hey, man, you need to calm down a little bit. And he's like, no. So at the end of the day, and then, of course, O-line, D-line will always have a rivalry. But at the end of the day, he's just outperforming everybody else so far. They're talking about James Pierce Jr. is unblockable right now. And he's crashing down on the run, and he's getting to the quarterback, y'all. If Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. can round into shape, scary. Update on Jalen Walker. I told y'all that injury, him being sidelined, don't read too much into it. But I get it. A lot of expectations this year. There's a lot of expectations this year for us to get to the playoffs, for us to make a run, possibly, with all this money we spent. And people got to save their job, quite frankly. But I told you Jalen Walker wasn't hurt. I think they were just bringing him along slowly. He did have the hamstring issue at Georgia, but he really didn't miss a lot of games. And it's not like he didn't want to play or come out and practice. He was trying to sit out. He wasn't trying to sit out. Raheem Morris sat him out. But I expect for him to play maybe the third preseason game, maybe the second. I don't know about the first, but again, he's one of the young guys that should be playing, that will play a lot, according to Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbrich. So you have Walker, who's sidelined early, precautionary. James Pierce Jr. is unblockable, and Khalid Kareem is a bright spot or a surprise. Can't wait to see Braylon Trice. What do we do with Arnold Ebiketie, y'all? We still have Ebiketie. I like him. He always seems out of whack. Like, not out of whack and mean like out of position. It's like the scheme didn't fit him. And now the scheme should highlight his talents more than anything. So we created $15 million in cap space. There's got to be a move to be made, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of the either Braylon Trice, who's been linked to Micah Parsons trade, or we move on from Ebiketie to allow these young guys to play, if that doesn't pair to bring in somebody else, right? So a big name per se. It may be at corner, it may be at D-line, it may be at D-tackle or edge rusher. I don't know. But I just don't know. If I had to cut all of those names that I said, the first two to go would be Ebiketie and Trice. Only because we don't know what Trice can do, and because he's been hurt, and Ebiketie has largely been a disappointment. But we'll see. I am excited that the edge rushers all look explosive and that we are getting to the backfield and that our defense, our front seven, is being aggressive. Speaking of front seven, let's round that out with the linebackers. Not much there. Again, of the defense, I would probably say the linebacking core is the most stable, meaning that there's no controversy about who's starting where. Caden Ellis, unquestioned leader. Starting middle linebacker, going to be there, green dot on the helmet. He should call the plays. We signed Divine Diablo. Hell of a name. We signed Divine Diablo, and he has come in, shown his athleticism and him being able to carry running backs and tight ends up the field and up the seam with his coverage ability. He has solidified himself as the starting middle linebacker along with Caden Ellis. One thing Ulbrich has harped on is athleticism. Look at our four linebackers, the young ones that are here. Caden Ellis, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, Divine Diablo. All of them are athletic. Super athletic. Uber athletic even. So if they're so athletic and they're so good and they can cover ground really quickly, if they live up to that, then you can kind of see what Ulbricht was going for. Somebody that I was high on that I talked about was JD Bertrand. He's been nicked up the last couple of days, but he's been running with the twos at inside linebacker. He's a very good blitzer, and he's pretty good in pass coverage too. If you look back at the Washington game, he played pretty well. He had a down game against Carolina, but we allowed 43 points or something like that. We all had a down game. But I expect for him to be firmly in the backup linebacker role. I don't know what we do with Troy Anderson. I don't know if Atlanta is willing to be patient with him anymore with the amount of young players and talent that we already have. He's on the physically unable to perform list. He's hurt. He's been hurt. He was hurt last year. He got hurt in minicamp. He probably will miss most of minicamp if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think that's where I read too. At this point, you may have to cut bait with Troy Anderson just for sheer numbers. We have so many linebackers. Why do I say they may cut bait with Troy Anderson? The obvious is because he's hurt, but there was a little bit of a tidbit that came out about D'Angelo Malone. For some reason, we're high on D'Angelo Malone because he's real. Not for some reason. He plays special teams very well. He's a very good special teams player. He's been rotating with the inside linebackers. D'Angelo Malone was drafted as an undersized edge, but him rotating with the inside linebackers and the edge rushers to kind of make him a Jalen Walker, Caden Ellis type of player tells me that Troy Anderson may be on his way out of here. I hope we don't cut him. I hope if he is out of here that we trade him so we can get something back for him. But again, I don't know if the Atlanta Falcons have had a team this deep. We are too deep at almost every position. Quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver. O-line is a little thin. O-line is a little thin. D-line, linebackers, cornerback, safety. We're too deep everywhere. Legit too deep, except for O-line. But back to the linebackers. Troy Anderson, man, you out of there, dude. I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's on the bubble. And I think Ebiketie is on the bubble on defense. And I think everybody else is just looking for their spot. But I think everybody else is safe in the front seven. Let's go to the secondary, y'all, before we get to this. We got secondary and then special teams. And then what we'll do is take a break. And then we'll preview the Panthers. Panthers. Preview the first game against the Lions. So with secondary, my notes are a lot of rotating, multiple position battles. Cornerback 1 and 2 are set from most of what I've seen. First string, AJ Terrell and Mike Hughes. I think we're going to roll out there with Mike Hughes. I wanted us to kick the tires on Asante Samuel Jr. and then make Mike Hughes kind of like a dime back where he can just kind of be the safety cornerback hybrid type player because I think he's really good at that. But if you have an effective pass rush, you could put him at the cornerback number 2 and be just fine. So those two are penciled in as the starters. What's interesting is Clark Phillips was supposed to be fighting for the nickelback position with D. Alford and Billy Bowman. Apparently that's not doing too well because they've moved him almost exclusively to the outside, which he can play. Again, Clark Phillips was super aggressive when he did play, when he was forced into action. He's just undersized, and at times that can get the best of him against bigger, faster wide receivers. But his technique is outstanding. He's very aggressive. But at the end of the day, you went from a nickelback, which is, I believe, a 2-person race, right, to outside corner, which is like a 6-person race, right? So you got AJ Terrell and Mike Hughes. You have Clark Phillips battling, Natrone Brooks, who's turned eyes, Lamar Jackson, who's turned heads, and then you also sign Keith Taylor, who is a 6'3" cornerback, and the measurables just make it intriguing by itself. Not to mention, you got what is viewed as the steal of the undrafted free agency pool in Kobe Bryant, who has played pretty well since coming off the physically unable to perform list. Matter of fact, after his first day, which he got his first day at training camp, Kobe Bryant had to guard Drake London. So much for you wanted to guard Jamar Chase. Drake London was cooking your lunch, boy. But again, it was his first day. It is what it is. Since then, they've been talking about the plays he's made. He had a pass breakup, and he had an interception of Kirk Cousins. So he's been pretty good now that he's gotten his sea legs. The nickelback position is probably going to be the most intriguing to see. It has now been whittled down to D. Alford and Billy Bowman almost exclusively. D. Alford, Cinderella story. I don't know if he was undrafted, but I know he must have been a low draft pick. But we brought him in either way. He fought his way up the roster. And he just balled out in the preseason one year and never looked back. Played really well. Last year, like everybody else, it was a struggle for him on defense. Kind of backslid a little bit. In comes Billy Bowman. See, the thing about backsliding at your position and not having a good year following up a good year, or not having a good follow-up to a good year, is that normally won't be as damning if the job security is okay. With Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot basically on the hot seat, we don't have time to see if you're going to be good, if you're going to round back into shape. You messed up all year, bringing in your replacement. In comes Billy Bowman. Billy Bowman, 5'11", 5'10", 5'11", 4'3", 40. Great tackler, really good in space. Clearly the number 2 corner nickelback right now, but he's not far behind D. Alford. And if Billy Bowman can take that position from D. Alford and make D. Alford the dime back, all of a sudden we look kind of crazy. If he's good. If not, you still can go back to D. Alford. But I expect Billy, out of all the rookies that were drafted, Billy Bowman probably has the best opportunity to start at nickelback. Or start, period. Jalen Walker and James Pierce probably won't start. And then you have Kobe Bryant won't start. Maybe Billy Bowman. He probably has the best. He or Xavier Watts have the best chances to start. Speaking of Xavier Watts, let's go ahead and move over to the safeties. Xavier Watts is in a full-fledged battle for the starting position over safety opposite Jesse Bates. Watts and Fuller are rotating at the first with the first string, the 1s and 2s. I think Jordan Fuller was in days 1 and 2 was with the first string. Days 3 and 4, it was Xavier Watts, and they keep going back and forth. Jesse Bates has already come out and said Xavier Watts reminds him of himself and the fact that he studies a lot. And he's very good at communicating. He just has to understand the scheme. James Pierce Jr., Rook Oro both said Xavier Watts, every time they see him in a play, he's coming downhill, right? He is filling the box and making plays. The thing for him, and I think the thing for most rookies, is making sure that you understand the scheme. So a battle between Xavier Watts and Jordan Fuller is taking place right now. What's interesting is that battle is taking place, but the second string is pretty much taken care of, or the backup safety in DeMarco Hellams. You remember Hellams was having a great preseason and early part of the season, and then he got hurt. He was out for the year. Luckily, or silver lining, is he got hurt at the beginning of the year. So it's been 12, 14 months since he's played. It's been 12 months and he's back. And apparently he's making a big deal. Not only has he forced a fumble, he's had a couple pass breakups as well of the first team. So the team loves him because he plays defense very well at safety and he plays special teams. So look for Helms to get a lot of playing time in the preseason, and I expect for him to make a move. So our nickelback and our safety opposite Bates are what you probably need to look for in the preseason going for 1, 2, and 3. Games 1, 2, and 3. Right. That is going to be, this preseason is going to be fun. I can't wait to see what happens with us and how our depth chart plays out. Remember, mark your calendar. There will be a 53-man roster special once all preseason games are done, where we'll try to predict the roster and those that don't make it and those that sign with the practice squad. Oh, shout out to Jesse Bates, too. Missed that note. Taking on more of a mentor role. Worked with Kobe Bryant, has worked with Xavier Watts about being professional and how to film study, and he has 3 laptops up and blah. Everybody's raving about Jesse Bates, which is exactly what our young team needs. So shout out to Jesse as well. Number 1 safety in football, according to everybody. Never thought that there would be a battle in special teams. When it comes to the returner, James Agnew has basically seized the return specialist, which I like because now Ray can concentrate on being a number 3. I think before Ray had to concentrate on being a return specialist because that was the way that he made the team. But now, because you have Agnew and because you played so well last year from the slot, they're going to give you more of a chance to play slot versus being a receiver, versus being a returner. So shout out to James Agnew. Stay healthy, man. Please stay healthy. But when it comes to special teams, Younghoe Koo versus Lenny Krieg has been a very interesting battle. Krieg has a strong leg. Regularly has been making kicks beyond 50 yards, 56 yards, 57, 55, 54, 58. But the thing is, he's got to be accurate. He's only had one day where he didn't miss a field goal. And it's not like he's missing field goals that are longer than 55 yards. He's missing 48, 47, 46, 42. On the other hand, Younghoe Koo, outside of the first day when I'm sure he was caught off guard with Krieg kicking the ball 60 yards, has been demonstrating why he's one of the best kickers in the league. Younghoe Koo, I think, is the highest paid kicker in the league and has been one of the best kickers over the last 5 years. He's been the more accurate kicker in camp, and he's out to prove that last year was just a fluke. Maybe you let Koo kick field goals only, and you let Krieg do kickoffs. That way he can kick the ball into the end zone since he has such a strong leg. But that's something that will follow because Koo can, again, with all of these camp battles, you can do everything you want to in practice. You can be a T-shirt All-American all day. Shout out to Coach Beatles. But at the end of the day, what separates All-Pro or pro or everything else being in the NFL is that you perform when it counts in the game. So with all of these position battles, especially kicker, because the teams are so close, you have to be able to guarantee points almost. If we get past the 40, that should be 3 points minimum, right? If the game is on the line, I need to be able to count on you to say, I will make the kick if it's 40 yards or 50 yards or closer, right? That's what I got to have confidence in. We lost a lot of close games. So that battle, will keep you guys up to date on that battle. But right now it's looking like Younghoe Koo.